Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I am your host, Apostate Aladdin. This is the fourth time that I attempt to start this live stream, so I hope that it works. I apologize for being a bit late. On today's show, I'm taking all sorts of callers, and if you joined 15 minutes before the live stream began, or 15 minutes before it was supposed to begin, you would have had a chance to join the queue to be one of the callers. But unfortunately today, or fortunately for us, we have plenty of callers already queued up. So if you'd like to join one of these streams, please try again next week and, watch in the meantime. So thank you everyone for joining. Today I'm taking all sorts of callers, and in the upcoming weeks, I'll be varying the weekly live stream by topic or by background of caller. But for today, I don't know what to expect. So let's together welcome the first caller on the list. Let's see if it works this time. Avvy, or Avvy, can you hear me? You are muted. Hey,
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry.
how's it going?
Going good. I've just been scrolling through Reddit while waiting.
Well, I'm glad to have you back here again. Nobody heard us talking the first time, so let's do it all over again. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what you'd like to talk about today.
Okay, so first off, hello, Internet. I'm Avvy. Um,
Sorry, you cut out for a second there. Can you speak again?
okay. Were you able to hear me the first time or no?
Now I can. We're good now.
Okay, so I'm Avvy. I am an ex-Muslim. I come from South Asian background. My family's from Bangladesh. I'm a college student, and I am really happy to be in this live stream. Like I'm a little uh have like stage fright again, so I'm just a little nervous about what I want to talk about and how I want to express what I'm talking about.
That's okay. There's no need to be. Yeah, you could talk about whatever you're comfortable talking about. So um, we could start wherever you want to talk about how you realize that you don't believe, or if you've ever believed, or your life now that you have left Islam. Feel free to start wherever you'd like.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mhm.
I guess an easy place to start is from, I was born into a Muslim family, so I was, expected to know know that I'm Muslim and just live my life as a Muslim and stuff like that. So the usual, you go to Saturday, Sunday, or like the weekend, like Arabic classes, or actually my parents they got Arabic teachers from like Bangladesh to teach me how to read the Quran. So I'd be on like these Zoom or Skype calls with like I don't speak Bengali, so half the time I couldn't understand what they're saying. So I'm just like, yeah, sorry for saying this wrong, like for the fifth time.
And
um,
they're Bengali and they're teaching you Arabic.
um, yeah, because my dad, he has an orphanage and a mosque in, well, actually, he donates a lot of money to an orphanage, and he built a mosque in Bangladesh. So he got like a bunch of imams there and people at the madrasa. So he got one of the imams there, the huzur, to teach me how to read Quran.
Okay, and
I'm
how
sorry if
did that go? You said you weren't quite sure what they were teaching you sometimes because you don't speak their language.
uh, yeah, like I only like I can understand like basic conversation Bengali. I'm not like very in depth. So what they were saying, like I did not understand what they're saying. So all I did was just repeat what they said, or I eventually learned how to read Arabic, like what the symbols mean, like how they sound and stuff like that. Like a lot of um people I knew, how they learned how to read Arabic was just, you repeat what another person says, and that's how you learn how to like read surahs. I mean, say surahs and stuff like that. So,
But you learn how to read
um,
it, but not quite how to understand it, right?
yes, I learned how to read it but not understand it.
Okay.
So that was like in my younger years when I was like, in elementary school. Um, my doubt actually in Islam happened during COVID actually when I was 17 and it was the lockdown happened and Ramadan was coming around the corner and I was like, I don't know, I don't feel very holy this month. I don't feel very spiritual this month. And I was thinking, oh, is there like something like wrong with me? Then eventually I was like, well, if I don't feel anything, I guess God doesn't exist. I just kind of stopped believing because of that feeling. But that was only like catalyst that kind of led me to where I am. I kept it very hidden to myself because obviously, when you come from very strict religious background, or most of the time when you come from a strict religious background, it's hard to express how you feel about your religion and apostasy and like even talking about other religions too. I kind of kept it secret um till I was like 18 and um I was doing some like Arabic reading, like reading the Quran, and I got so upset that like I was reading something like I don't believe in, and my dad noticed that I was upset about it, and
Wait,
he was
can we
like, "Why?"
pause for a second? Your audio seems to be cutting in and out. Can you remain a bit closer to the mic and see how that sounds?
Is this a lot better?
I think it's better. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Um, I should I restart what I was saying from a certain point? So the last thing I was saying was like, my dad noticed that I was upset at the Quran, and he asked me, "Why are you upset at the Quran?" And I was like, "It's because I don't believe anymore." And he got so upset. He called my mom and he called my two brothers. We had like a family intervention, and my dad was like, "How could you like deny that you're a Muslim? You were born a Muslim. I've done what I can to make sure you were staying on this path." And like a lot of like harsh words for saying where he was saying I'm trying to protect you from like hellfire, and I'm trying to do everything I can to make sure you're a Muslim. Why are you throwing it away? And it was a long talk, and I felt like I was gonna be trapped in that conversation forever. And eventually, like things cooled down. We had dinner, and things went on like that never happened. And that's like a normal thing with my family. Like whenever something tough happens, so mainly when it comes to me, when something tough happens, they kind of brush it off and just continue on things. So from then on, I pressed myself so hard. Like I was taking prayer. Um, I wore the hijab more strictly, and I was like really trapped. And wasn't till like I started college that I felt more comfortable with who I was. I was like, yeah, I'm an ex-Muslim. Oh, actually, I didn't have the term ex-Muslim at that time. I was just like, oh, I'm not Muslim. And like in college, I was like, I don't want to live my life like this anymore. I don't want to live my life in secret, living this double life, sucks. Like having to take the hijab off at school or like having to hide who I'm friends with, like not being able to like feel comfortable in my skin and things like that. And eventually I actually ran away from home. um like
You ran
I
away
was
from home?
well technically I was an adult, so it would be considered as moving out kind of thing.
But
So
I mean, you
like
did it kind of behind their back or uh, without their permission?
yeah, I did it without their permission. um well part of it was like I'm not religious like my family. So I felt like I couldn't be comfortable where I was living. I hated college at that time too, so I was like, through college, I'm gonna take a gap year. And also another part of it was like my um gender identity, which is something I can talk about a little bit later if there's time for that. Um, and that was when I was really set on that, like, yes, I am not a Muslim anymore. I don't care, and I feel like, or it's a common thing where a lot of people who've been like repressed about certain aspects of their life, once they have freedom, they tend to they tend to go wild. Like, they'll do anything and everything they can. And I was that kind of person. Like, I was like, yes, I can finally hang out with my friends more. I can stay up late. I can go out in the middle of the night. I can go down to the gas station and buy a snack and it has gelatin in it. No one's going to stop me. I know, crazy, right? And I actually ended up doing a lot of traveling because of that too.
Well, how do you
I'm
feel
so sorry.
about the move?
Um, it was interesting. Like I was doing a lot of couch surfing before I finally got my own place, actually. So, um, like I kind of cut my family out for a short amount of time, and I was like, finally, freedom. God doesn't exist. Like I was an atheist. Like I was like God can never exist. The idea of God doesn't make sense, like that kind of thing. And I was like that till actually earlier this year, my dad reached out to me and was saying stuff like you should you should really go back to college. We're still your family, we'll still support you and all of that. And eventually I moved back with my parents. And then I went through another cycle of out about my beliefs, mainly because my family became more religious than last time. Like I saw them, like they were praying more. Like they even like woke up for Fajr prayer. They did Isha prayer, which is like something they didn't do before. So they were praying like almost every prayer. They were making dua more often. My mom and dad went to Umrah together, and now they're actually gonna go to Hajj next year, I think, and stuff like that. So like they were definitely, fulfilling their religious duties as a Muslim, and I was like, how am I gonna be able to bear with this? And it eventually became a thing where like I became a half Muslim. It's not a thing, you can't be a half Muslim. It's either you believe or you don't believe. Like I was doing everything a Muslim did, but I just wasn't believing, and I kind of like second guessed myself a little bit, or like doubted myself even more about things. And I was in a spiritual crisis. Like I was like, oh my god, maybe there is a god or something out there, and he's upset at me, or it's upset at me, and I just needed to look for guidance or something. So my dad got a religious counselor for me, which is very, very biased to get a religious counselor to talk about spirituality because it always favors the religious side most of the time. Like every time I've talked to this guy, he's always talking about, well, whether you're a Muslim or not, we're still gonna do things the Muslim way. So like that just annoyed me a lot. And when I told him that like I don't believe in Islam anymore, my counselor is like, never in my life have I ever heard anyone give a valid reason to leave Islam. And that was like a catalyst to making me like really deep dive into like why people like stop believing in Islam. And that's when I found this Reddit um, forum called r/Exmuslims, and I read through like hundreds and hundreds of posts like every week. It's about people's experiences, and then people started mentioning like, oh, there's these like scientific mistakes in the Quran, and like I started looking into those scientific mistakes, and I found like ex-Muslim YouTube, and the first ex-Muslim YouTuber I was introduced was a masked Arab,
Hmm.
and his insights on the Quran and everything were like so well structured. You know, he has his evidence. He tells us about like how people bend and twist interpretations and to their liking and things like that. And I was like, whoa, that's so cool. And I watched a lot of his videos and he hasn't uploaded in a few years. I kind of moved on to Apostate Prophet and his humor, his satire, like really vibed with me. So I was just like, wow, this is really fun to watch, and I'm also learning at the same time. And it was also like a perspective of like not a native Arabic speaker. It's like, oh yeah, I totally like agree with what he's saying because those are feelings I felt. Like I've read the Quran, but I didn't understand the Quran because like the people around me didn't speak Arabic, so like they didn't like there's some like translations they knew, but they didn't know the entire translation of the Quran. So with his insights and his research, it just made me kind of obsessed with like kind of disproving Islam. And
What
eventually, I
what's
actually
uh,
came.
what makes you obsessed with disproving Islam?
It's just um that it just makes sense to me because there's like a lot of evidence of it, I guess,
No, let me
being
rephrase that.
wrong.
What motivates you to go on that search and try to find out whether or not Islam is true, or try to find um, all the evidence that Islam is not true? What is the motivation behind that search?
It was definitely like the mom telling my religious counselor telling me that I need to find a valid reason to leave. Like I was on the search to find a valid reason to leave because I can't find a valid reason, then it's the thing of like if there's no valid reason, then there's no reason to leave Islam kind of thing.
I mean, the way that I like to think about it is, rather than go on the defensive or go on your own search for valid reasons to disprove Islam or leave Islam and all that kind of stuff, um, you need to stop and think, what are the reasons that I believe in Islam? And if you simply don't believe, like you don't even need a reason, if you simply do not believe Islam, that's as good a reason as any to not be a Muslim. Because if you don't believe something, how can you be a member of that religion? If you don't believe it and you don't want to follow it, that's plenty valid reason right there. But when they phrase it that way, when they say, I've never heard of one valid reason, blah, 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 this arrogant position of theirs, um, they're ignoring that not everyone assesses information the same way. They're ignoring that they don't really have good evidence for Islam. They have reasons to believe in Islam, but that doesn't mean the same as good evidence for the truth of Islam. So you don't owe anybody anything. You don't owe them proof that Islam is not true. In fact, they owe the world, especially as people like that person calls himself a counselor. He's more like a person who's reconverting you back into Islam. He owes you reasons and proof and all of the above. You don't owe him anything. What you owe yourself is peace of mind. So, is that search helping you find your peace of mind?
Mm, yeah, definitely. Because like I learned like a lot about myself, like how my beliefs like interact with Islam. Um, like when it came to like the hijab, like I used to be anti-hijab, but now I'm just like let people wear what they're comfortable with. Like don't force them to wear certain items of clothing. Don't shame them for wearing certain items of clothing because like hijab has like a lot of cultural misogynistic like views that have been put on it when like from the research I've found from like apostate prophet masked Arab, and I think you've also talked about the hijab a few times.
Hmm.
Sorry, it's like I'm misquoting you.
No, I've talked about it at several points, and a lot of people who've called into these shows have spoken about their experience with the hijab as well. Um, and something that I want to highlight here is it's important to also leave room in this search for you and your thoughts. I mean, it's good to find all of this information, but also you need to pause every now and then and check in with yourself. How does watching this content make me feel? Am I finding these answers for me or for someone else, like that counselor? And what do I think about these things? And just reminding you that you need to make sure to take pauses and go through that process a bit more slowly than just watching videos that people have made. I'm not sure if that's what you've done or not, but I'm just reminding you of that.
That's a good point. Um, so now that you do bring it up, how it makes me feel, it's like it actually makes me feel a little bit happier because like I am more at peace because like I'm finding like I'm learning more about myself, like how my beliefs interact with Islam. So it kind of helps me feel more concrete about what kind of person I am. And I'm also like I also like learning generally. Like I like learning about history, politics, math, science, that kind of stuff. So it's also just me like learning about this history and how that history has affected people and just affected modern day time. Because like, I'm taking the humanities class, so like it kind of correlates with me wanting to learn more,
Hmm.
and I definitely do feel more at peace with myself. Like I feel less angry with um Muslims. Like before, I used to like not like hanging out or hanging around like Muslim people mainly because of like I kind of gave myself the perception like oh all Muslims are going to be this way or I hate I hate Islam so much. I hate Muslims. Like I used to be like that. I used to be anti-religion and all that. But now that like I'm a little bit older and I've done more research and I've spent more time with myself, I'm definitely like in a better space where it's like, you know, we're all people. Everyone's on their own journey and, I shouldn't interfere with people's spiritual journeys and I shouldn't control how people feel about certain things, like things like that. I've definitely achieved a better state of mind where I've become less obsessive over like trying to find reasons to leave when like deep down like I know that like I don't believe and I'm okay with that and I'll be on my own journey to find my own truth and things like that. Sorry if like I'm rambling or
No, no,
anything.
you're fine. Can I offer you one explanation and tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm close? Um, one explanation for why watching those kinds of videos has made you feel better, and I would assume, at least in my case, that that was the case. When you're surrounded by Muslims, including your family members, who are kind of dismissing your position, who are telling you that you're wrong about what you believe or what you don't believe in, and then you speak to people like those counselors who are extremely arrogant and aren't really hearing you. They're not validating your position. They don't say, "I hear you and I see why you can see it that way." Because honestly, if they do, if they say, "I can understand why you don't believe anymore," that would destroy their religion. So it's kind of difficult to do that. Um, and then you come across people who validate your position by telling you, "No, you're not crazy. There is actually a lot of stuff wrong with this religion." That makes you feel noticed. Makes you feel like you're not alone, and it doesn't. You no longer feel like you're just surrounded by people who are opposite of you. You know that others like you exist. So that's how I felt when I came across some of these videos. Um, has that affected your journey in any way?
But yeah, definitely. Like I felt like yeah, definitely. I don't feel alone anymore. Like I used to be like, oh, I'm I'm the only ex-Muslim within 1,000 miles. But actually, I've actually made a ton of ex-Muslim friends recently, and they're not 1,000 miles away. Some of them are like really close, like people at my school that I didn't even know. Like brought me closer to like-minded people, and I felt less alone, less like angry and upset. Like the more and more like I feel like people go through these phases where um they're in denial about it, the doubting phase, and then they become really depressed, and then they start either becoming obsessive with the religion or obsessive with disproving it or being anti-religious and things like that. And with maturity and learning more about yourself, learning more about like your religion or learning about something else in your spiritual journey, you soon get to a state of mind where you're like, oh, I'm a lot happier with with how I am now, and I'll know that I'll grow, be a better person soon.
Mhm.
That makes sense. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you calling in today and sharing your story. And yeah, I'm glad that you joined today.
Thank you for having me. Like this has been an exciting opportunity. Thank you so much.
Of course. And yeah, I hope things keep trending upwards for you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye. All right. Thanks again, Avvy, for joining the call. I've seen a bunch of comments saying that they relate. So yeah, your story is certainly one that a lot of us can relate to. Let me see who the next caller is. The next caller is OhSoHeavenly. I hope that you're ready because I'm adding you right now if I can manage to do it. All right, there we go. Hey, OhSoHeavenly, can you hear me? You are currently muted.
Oh, hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Oh, I'm doing good, and how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Yeah, so
Okay.
welcome to the show. Tell me a little bit about yourself and why you're joining today.
Okay, so I am an ex-Christian I'm now an agnostic atheist. I'm from South Africa. I am from the old Apostolic Church denomination of Christianity. And I just wanted to talk about how the indoctrination like really affected my self-esteem and some of like the really absurd things that like I used to believe in, and like I didn't realize like it was like cultish in a way. Yeah, and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah. feel free to. Where would you like to start in talking about this?
I would like to start explaining what the Old Apostolic Church is, because I don't think anyone knows what it is.
Okay. Yeah, I certainly don't know the specifics of that, so please do share.
Okay, so the Old Apostolic Church is it has roots in the Catholic Church. It was founded in the 1860s, but the whole general idea of it is that you we don't they don't no, I say we, but we don't they don't believe that Jesus is coming back, most Christians. They believe that Jesus is dead, and that the old apostolics are the new reincarnates of Jesus himself. And we you go to church every single day, and for Monday to Tuesday and Wednesday and Fridays choir practice, and then Wednesday and Saturday is Bible study, and then on Sunday it's normal church. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So you
And
did you notice that it was different than other churches
yes, I did
when you're a
notice
believer?
when I started going.
Mhm.
Hello?
Yeah, when you were a believer, did you notice that it was different than the other churches?
Yes, I did notice that it was very different, because other kids at my school, well, they were less religious, but they believed that Jesus was gonna come back one day. And more mine version of church was I saw it was a bit more extreme, because they didn't have to go to church every day. They didn't have to say every time you get out the house, you say, "May God protect me in God the Holy Son," and the whole Holy Trinity thing. You always have to say that each and every single time. Anything that you do, you're about to cross the road, that, how deep that's how deep the indoctrination was for me at the time. So it was very different from my friends. And also out at church, I was encouraged to only be friends with people from the old apostolic church and not people outside. And if they are outsiders in a way, even other Christian denomination, I should try to convert them to my side.
Did you actively do that? Try to convert people to your side?
No, I was really shy to do that, and it's very hard for me to make friends, so I didn't want to bombard them and be like, "Oh, here, come and join my church," because they had already had their church, and I wasn't really interested in converting people anyway. I just really loved having friends for once in my life when I started high school.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you noticed from a young age that you were different than other Christians around you, and how did that feel at the time?
Um, It 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 felt very weird in a way, and I used to ask myself why is it that most Christians believe something completely different from us? Even the old Christian denominations that believe differently from each other, they have the general same things that they believe in, but the old apostolic church is very, very different, and it made me feel weird in a way. I couldn't fit in when they were talking about religion, because I believe in something completely, not completely, but a little bit different from them.
Okay, and then what happened? How did your journey with faith progress?
Okay, so in when I started grade 10, I lost my father. And then the people at church, obviously they're being comforting, but they were like, "Oh, it's because, God needed your father more." And it triggered me a lot. I don't know why. It was really irritating for me, because it's kind of what does that even mean? I go to church every day. I don't need all of this stress. I go to church every day, but God is going to take away the one thing in my life that I really love. And that's how I started losing my faith, and all of the weird stuff that I had to do, going to church every day and saying those the Holy Trinity after every single decision that I'm making. If I'm writing an exam, I'm crossing a road, I'm getting outside the house, I started questioning all of those things and like why I needed to say all of these things. And that's like how I started doubting. Like that's like how my journey with faith went.
Okay. And at the time, did you have anyone that you spoke with about your feelings or your faith?
No, I didn't have anyone to speak to. This is actually like my first time talking about this to anyone at all. I did tell like my other friends that, oh, I don't go to church anymore, but I don't tell them like, oh, I'm no longer a believer. And also like my other Christian friends, they're not from my same denomination, so they won't really understand where I'm coming from, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So and yeah, that's basically it.
So did you ever find someone who you could confide in about your faith eventually?
I did like I do have a one friend that I talk to about like my church, but like I can see like she's not really that interested because she's a Christian. Like she's not really like that interested.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't really found that person to really understand where I'm coming from.
That's relatable. I know a lot of people watching this channel feel the same way, and it's funny when you were talking about some of the things that you mentioned earlier. I could relate to as a Muslim. Obviously, not every Muslim does this, but the way that you pray before or after doing something, and how often you go to your place of worship, that is something we have in common. And how do you feel now after time has passed from that?
From like after losing my faith,
Yes.
like I feel better and like I feel like more confident in myself because even like the small like decisions that I want to make, for instance, you first have to consult your priest. So let's say you want to like travel long distance, like you're traveling maybe outside the country, you must go to your priest to ask for blessings. So every major decision, any financial decision that you make, you have to consult your priest and go tell them, oh, I'm about to do this, I came to ask for your blessing. And for the first, when I was a believer, it made me feel very unconfident in decision making. But now that I've gotten over that, I feel like more confident in myself and in my decision making. It definitely affected my self-esteem and like how I thought. But now like I feel a bit better about myself.
I'm really happy to hear that. I can imagine it can be kind of infantilizing to have to go to someone before you make any decision and ask them, am I making a mistake? Is this the right thing to do? But was it scary to not have that reassurance for a while? Or was it just comforting from the beginning?
It was very scary at first because it was like my first time not making a major decision and then not going to the priest. It was like, I'm so scared. What if this goes wrong and God is gonna punish me? And it's kind of like, no, I don't believe in God. Like I don't have to stress about this. So it did take time to get over, but eventually I got over it eventually. So I'm fine now.
How many years ago was that, if you don't mind me asking?
Like 2.5 years ago.
Okay. And do you still get any sort of like faith flashbacks? Like you think back to your faith and think, could I have been wrong? Or feeling the same way you used to feel back when you were a believer? Do you still get those?
No, I don't. Like, I think I'm in a better place right now. But something that I do, like a faith flashback that I do, is when like I'm in an uncomfortable situation and like I feel like I'm not safe somewhere. I'll say like, "Oh God, protect me from," and I'm like, first of all, that's not even gonna work. So that's something that like I need to work on even after like 2.5 years. So it definitely like stayed with me.
Well, have you ever tried to, instead of just not saying whatever that phrase would be, replacing it with another phrase like I will be safe, or some other reassurance like that?
No, I haven't tried that. But I will try it. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, that could be easier than just forcing yourself to not say anything, and then you lose the benefit of that reassurance, because that's what it's about. It's not really about God protecting you. It's about saying something to yourself to remind yourself that you're safe. So you can always think of something else to say that way.
Oh, yes, I will definitely like do that this time.
Yeah.
I
I'm
don't know
curious
if you
to,
have like any more.
yeah, I mean, I'm first of all, I'm curious how you came across my channel, if you recall, and what motivated you to join this live stream. I mean, you're more than welcome. I'm just curious how someone from such a different background happened to be here.
Oh, I first saw your live stream. It was like the YouTube algorithm that recommended me to you. And like, oh, it's an ex-Muslim. Let me see this. It was like 7 months ago. And what interested me like to join in this channel is like this channel is like very comforting in a way because you're very patient and like empathetic and understanding in a way. And as an ex-Christian from that different denomination, even from other Christians, I don't really have that much like representation. And there are no other Christian channels that do like the stuff that you do. So definitely it like your channel is more like comforting. Yes.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that. And I also appreciate the specificity, because sometimes I ask people that question and they say, oh, I don't remember, but you said 7 months ago. So I appreciate that you remember that.
Yes.
Well, I'm happy that the algorithm has done something good and, introduced this channel to you. And I'm happy that you felt like it was the right kind of space for you to call and talk about your story. And I'm curious, do you have any questions for me?
No, I don't think I've watched pretty much all of your videos, so I don't think I need to ask you any questions.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I could think of another question about your journey out of your faith, but I want you to share as much as you would like to share, or as much as you felt like sharing today. So if you feel like
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you feel like you have shared what's on your mind and you feel satisfied with that, then I am satisfied with that.
Oh, okay. There's also like something weird that we used to like believe in my Christian denomination that I want to talk about. I won't be long though.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
So like we had like this belief, like when you get baptized, like they would like mark your forehead with a cross. And basically that forehead is like this light, supposedly like that you have that dead people can see. So if you are like an old apostolic church goer and you don't go to church and you've been baptized and you don't go to church as often, those dead souls or those dead people, their souls are going to demise because of you and they won't reach salvation because you don't want to go to church. So there was like something else that was really insidious that made me like stay longer at church, and something that really like took a long time for me to get over.
Man, what a guilt trip that is. So you're saying if you don't do this ritual and have ash on your forehead, the dead souls won't have the light that they need to be guided, or something like that?
Yes, exactly. So exactly like that. And it will also like risk my salvation, like me being saved when I die,
I mean,
something like
yeah,
that.
that part is expected. Like, we all know that part, like you're going to hell, but it's an extra level of twisted to say, and other people might be, more in demise because of you. That is awful, but I'm glad that you see through that now.
Yeah. So I was like, this is nonsense. This is just basically keeping us in for longer.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense that God, first of all, it doesn't make any sense that God would bring you into sin and then punish you for it, but also that that God would punish other people for you not behaving a certain way. That makes no sense.
Exactly. But like they were speaking as if like the souls were people who were not from the old apostolic church. So their souls are just wandering on earth and I have to save them as that person. So it's not people from the old apostolic church, it's outsiders that I don't even know for some reason. Like dead people I don't know that I'm not even related to, which was like more weird because I'm like, who are these people following me? I don't want this energy.
It's so on two fronts. On one front, you should what was it? You should bring people into the faith, and on the other front, you should be in the faith and do the rituals, or else some of those people will face a worse demise.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. I just want to highlight this comment. Callie says, I almost told someone they had dirt on their forehead. Glad I didn't because I found out it was Ash Wednesday. How would that situation have went? If someone came to you and said, hey, there's dirt on your forehead, how would you have reacted?
No, it's not actually like dirt on my forehead. It's like when you get baptized, it's basically like symbolic.
Mm-hmm. No, I know that, I don't know if it's the same church, but I know that there are churches that do Ash Wednesday where people would have like a cross with ash on their forehead. So it sounds similar to this. So that's a ritual that you did every week, right?
Not every week. It wasn't some. It's something that's done when you join the church. Like they take the holy water, Christians, and then they put it on your forehead, and then that's basically the light that the ghosts or the dead people are gonna follow you. You know.
So you're like a lighthouse for dead people.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. People are mixing this up with Ash Wednesday. That's a different thing for Catholics. But yeah. Well, that's today. I learned something new. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Wow.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks again for joining, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Right, thanks again to the caller. That was very interesting. I am noticing we still have a bunch of other callers. Thank you all for being here. So something that I've been ashamed to do, but every how to be a YouTuber guide keeps reminding me of this kind of thing. I just want to remind everybody to like and subscribe if you can, because I know some people don't want to subscribe for, safety reasons. But if you can, like, subscribe, leave a comment when the video is over, all that good stuff. Maybe comment your favorite moment, like a timestamp from the video, not in the live chat, but under the video so that people who watch it afterwards can see that. All of that really helps interaction with the channel, and it helps the channel grow, and it helps the algorithm suggest it to people like the previous caller. So I would appreciate that a lot. So thanks for being here, everyone. Okay, who is the next caller? Sorry, I'm a bit disorganized today. Dawood, I hope you're ready because I'm adding you to the stream now. Hey, Dawood, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome back to the stream. We've had you on here before, right?
Yeah. Thank you for having me again.
Of course.
I want to say the last time I was here, I was really nervous because it was a spur of the moment decision. I was on YouTube, then I saw that Aladdin is going to be live in 1 hour. So I said, okay, let's talk. I've been watching his videos for a while, so let's do it. And to be honest with you, after I watched it again, I was kind of embarrassed because the thing is, I used to do public speaking. So when I listened back, I was very nervous, stuttering, Arabic fillers, which I usually don't do. So before going into what I want to talk about, I want to ask you a question since this is your show. It's
Sure.
about public speaking.
Sure.
Yeah. Were you always this way? As in, were you always a speaker, or was this a skill that you developed as you progressed in your career, let's say?
Well, I'm flattered that you think that I'm a speaker. No, I was. Well, I'm glad that I've developed it then. I'll be honest. I was a very, very shy kid growing up. It was hard for me to speak, even in a public setting, asking for something at the grocery store. That was difficult for me. Um, and then in university, well, yeah, during my university years, I joined a few sessions of Toastmasters. I'm sure have you heard of Toastmasters? It's
Not really. Can you explain that?
yeah, I'm probably not going to do it justice, but it's like a public speaking club, and there's chapters or like there's chapters of it in a bunch of cities around the world, in universities and such. And it's just a bunch of people who meet up and they do exercises to improve their public speaking. And I only did 2 times maybe, and it was very, very interesting, but for some reason I didn't go anymore. But that helped a little bit in exposing me to a bunch of other people who are also nervous about public speaking, or actively saying, I want to improve that skill. So I didn't feel as self-conscious about it. And then, long story short, I found that I was already better at public speaking than a lot of people in my field of study. A lot of them were very introverted and very technically minded, so that helped a little bit. And then doing YouTube, I think it just happened with time. I've done like 100 live streams at least. So
Yeah.
I feel embarrassed when I listen to my own live streams and hear myself mispronouncing things or stuttering or saying like in the middle of a sentence because
Yeah.
other people say it, so I say it. But it's fine. And I hope you don't feel bad about your first appearance, and you've rehearsed this time. You came
Yeah.
prepared.
No, I
Yeah.
wrote bullet points this time. I actually prepared. The thing that you said about Toastmaster, I actually had something similar. Mine's the name. I forget the name. It was a club. And to be honest, I've always loved speaking. I like the feeling of being nervous. You get that feeling as well. I actually like it. I've learned to like it. I've loved the idea of being able to influence people for the better using my voice. So, for the viewers that did not watch the third Colin show in which I was there, I was someone who wrote a journal last year. Matter of fact, it's exactly a year ago, October 18th. I wrote a journal where I wanted to improve myself in the religious aspect, as in just to start praying. In that live stream, I said that I was doubting my own doubts. Do you remember that vaguely? How I was,
Vaguely.
I
Are you
feel
saying
that,
it was at the third live stream? What was it? Why do you believe? Was
yeah. In that live stream, I said that in my head, deep down, I think that I was like an arrogant disbeliever who secretly knows that this religion is true, but hides it to follow their desires. Because I struggled with praying, but I can tell you that this is no longer the case. I've become very confident in my conclusion, and after discovering your channel, I've started watching other people. In my head, I thought you were the best, and to be honest, and I say no offense, I say you're second best because Siraj Al-Hayani is the best in my opinion. After watching all of these channels, do you know Siraj Al-Hayani?
I'll take it. I love Siraj Al-Hayani. Yeah.
So I'm good at Arabic, right? So when he presented his claims and the evidences, he was able to convince me. And then I've seen Qusay Bitar, Sharif Gaber, and what's funny is that I actually saw Muhammad Hijab responding to Sharif Gaber. And he started insulting him as he usually does. By the way, I don't hate Muhammad Hijab, but this is a big flaw in his characters that he insults a lot. He kept saying how Arab atheists are much worse than Western atheists because at least Western atheists have an argument, they have a hujjah. And I fundamentally disagree. If anything, I'd say those here in the Middle East, they're much stronger, they're much sharper. They know their stuff because they were a part of the religion. They know the ins and the outs. And for most people, let's say like atheists in the West, they don't really know the Arabic language. They don't understand anything. Like they're skeptics at best, to be honest.
I mean,
So it was,
I think it
yeah,
depends on the case, but I agree with you that generally in the Middle East, because all of them speak Arabic natively, it's no issue for them digging into the source material. For those who need a translator or need a translation, it's more difficult. And some of them actually I admire, like the amount of effort that they put in, even as a believer, to gain that much information. Like I've spoken to some who maybe come from a Middle Eastern background, maybe not, but they learned Arabic so that they can be better in their faith. And it's a lot of dedication. I admire that. But you're right. The average ex-Muslim YouTuber in the Middle East obviously is a lot better equipped to do the research.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's the only way to challenge it. I know this is going to sound very weird, but the purest form, let's say, of a Muslim is someone who speaks Arabic, which is not the fault of people who don't speak the language. Again, if God wanted to reveal this religion to everyone, you'd think that maybe more than one language. But that's what I'm saying. The Arab atheists, they know what they're talking about. And you said something about how you admire Westerners, those who criticize the religion, how they put an effort to understand the things. This leads me to another point, to a debate that I've watched recently, and I'm pretty sure you've watched as well, which is Daniel Haqiqa Joe.
Wait, sorry, to clarify, I was saying, I mean, I do admire people who put in the effort to improve their criticism, but what I was talking about was just in general. I've spoken to some people who I admire the effort that they put in to study their religion to begin with, because they were really dedicated to it before they left the religion either. Who?
And Matt Dillahunty.
Mm-hmm.
You've watched it?
I think I made it partway through and I was too frustrated to continue.
Yeah. The thing is, I'm not going to excuse Daniel for what he did. He was awful throughout. But I also want to comment on Matt. I think Matt is one of, if not the most sharp atheist in the West, maybe. Again, because I don't know many, but as far as I know, he's very critical, he's very sharp, he uses logic, that stuff. But his personality, a problem. And I'm gonna commit an astaghfirullah here in the channel. I'm actually going to quote the Quran. In the Quran it says لو كنت فظا غليظ القلب لانفضوا من حولك. And for those who don't speak Arabic, the overall message of this verse is, it doesn't matter if you're right, if you're rude, you're aggressive, you don't show any sort of respect, nobody's gonna listen to you. And that's the thing with Matt. And I'd say even a lot of those who criticize Islam in the West, this arrogance.
I mean, yeah. I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second on behalf of, I mean, I agree with you. I completely agree with you. But whether it's Matt or some of the more aggressive ex-Muslims or other atheists, I think sometimes that is an amplified or reflected response of the kind of rhetoric that they have received from theists, not to excuse them, but sometimes I find that it's just the environment that they're immersed in, especially if they hit a certain part of the algorithm and suddenly a lot of believers are watching their videos. They get hit with a lot of negative energy that then they give back. So I can understand how that happens. I think I've been lucky that I do get a little bit of that. Obviously, if you talk about Islam, that's going to happen, but I didn't hit mainstream recognition. So thankfully, I wasn't put under that test. So I can understand sometimes how the circumstances make it more likely for someone to behave in a more hostile way, because that's the environment that he's accustomed to, or that he's getting from his opposition.
Absolutely. What was I going to say? The thing is, you've heard this before. With great power comes great responsibility. If you have a platform, it is your responsibility to endure. I understand 100% what you're trying to say, but they still have a responsibility, especially if their goal is to convince other people that no, this religion is harmful or whatever. It doesn't excuse you to throw an F-bomb in the debate, to say, I would listen to you if you shut the F up. That's what Matt said. again,
Oh yeah, I can imagine that. I didn't watch that part, but I can imagine that Daniel would have latched onto that because,
oh, he did. He did
of
actually.
course.
If you look at his YouTube channel, and again, this is one of the bullet points is apologist's behavior. He kept weaponizing Matt's attitude to discredit him. Not to, of course, not to excuse Matt. And he even used his personal life. He started talking about his past, how he let his wife sleep around, which again I don't agree with that lifestyle, but that's not related to the debate. And he kept pushing that. He kept
Man,
posting
I got
videos
to comment
making
on
fun
that
of
for
Matt.
a second. There was a debate recently between Daniel and Javad Hashemi, like a progressive Muslim, and I remember watching part of it, and Daniel made a huge big deal about how Javad showed or mentioned, I'm not sure, showed or mentioned a picture of Daniel's wife not even wearing a hijab from like her public social media. He didn't dox anybody or anything. It was just a picture that she shared. And he was saying how Daniel is a hypocrite, the way that he, demands a certain behavior from Muslims, and in his own family, it's not that way. And Daniel made a big stink about how he's being doxxed and this is his personal life and all that kind of stuff. Yet he is apparently bringing up, yeah.
Continue, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's apparently he's bringing up Matt's marriage and talking about that topic. It's just I find that those who protest the loudest about a certain thing sometimes are projecting, and sometimes are, they'll turn around and do the same exact thing. So I really don't like Daniel as a debater or as a public personality, or maybe even as a person, to be honest.
Yeah. This is why I actually support you, because I think, first of all, you're the best of both worlds. You know Arabic, you have a good grasp of the English language, you know your stuff,
Thank
do
you.
your research, your attitude is very pleasant. So whenever you talk to anyone, Muslim or otherwise, you always try to understand them. So if anything, I would want you, I don't want to say famous, but I do want you to be the face of the, let's say, of the community. Does that make sense?
Well, maybe one of the faces, I hope, one of the half faces of, or quarter faces, or
Yeah.
however much you count
Yeah,
this.
there are others, but but I'm not really satisfied with others.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, that's part of why I found myself here, is I didn't feel exactly represented. I'm not talking about the Arabic side of the ex-Muslim YouTube world. There's plenty of people who, like you've mentioned, some of the names, they're doing a much better job than I have been, or they're actually doing a different thing. Not to discredit myself here, but I didn't find this kind of representation for me here, so I found myself in this position. But I'm glad that you feel that way, and I'm glad that you feel like I represent your position better than some of the other people here.
Yes, and if it was up to me, I would have supported you financially, but I don't have the means for that, so
I appreciate that.
Yeah, but you said something about not being represented well, and if this is one of the bullet points as well, is that how Muslim apologists behave and how they usually draw Muslims, how they always leave for emotional reasons, not true. How they believe that the universe came from nothing, that's also not true. And they always use or weaponize their uncertainty to show that they are right, which is a literal logical fallacy. They usually use this verse, أم خلقوا أم هم الخالقون بل لا يوقنون, as if that makes them right. It doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's something that they always talk about, this point, emotional reasons for leaving or whatever. I find that to be so disingenuous when, as you know very well, the Quran is littered with emotional reasons to stay. I mean, why are you throwing stones when your house is made of glass? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but they will never admit that.
Yeah, I just find that that conversation to be exhausting, because usually it puts the ex-believer in a position to say, no, I have rational reasons and let's go through them one by one. Let me prove it to you. But we have to make it known to them that's not how it's supposed to work. The burden of proof is on you. And if Islam
Exactly.
can employ emotional reasons to keep people in, then people can leave for emotional reasons. It's only fair.
Yeah, I always told people that people are complex. Human beings were complex. We're not always guided by intellect and rationality. Religion in general is a very emotional thing. I know people who stayed in the religion simply because they're too afraid of death. They cannot cope with the fact that potentially nothing comes after death. They're terrified of it. They stayed. That is an emotional reason.
That is one of the
But
most
that's not,
commonly cited reasons that I hear is
yeah,
people asking, so if your version of reality is true, or if Allah is not real, then life is unfair and people can get away with doing bad things? Is that the world that
that
you
is
think we live in? Like, yeah, it
that
might
is
be.
the unfortunate, yeah, that is the unfortunate reality. To be honest, at this point, I really wish that I am wrong. I think the biggest disadvantage of my transition, from theism to atheism, uh, is to accept that evil will most probably go unpunished. This is a very tough pill to swallow, and this is why I don't even bring up this topic to anyone I know or I love. I don't want to convince anyone of my position. I keep it to myself, especially because of what's happening recently. I'm sure you're well aware. If I'll go around and try to convince people that no, this is not true, then psychologically, I don't think they can bear what's happening around the world. And I've
Yeah.
had this position even way before, even in uni. For example, when you go into an exam that's very hard and you get out, everyone did terribly. But usually we joke around and say, listen, guys, the most important exam is the akhirah. When you die, the angels are going to ask you three questions, not how to integrate each of the. You get the point. It's a source of comfort. So I find it very cruel if you actively try to take that away from people. What do you think of that?
I mean, let me think about that for a second, that it would be cruel to take it away from people. I mean, yeah, and that's something that I have myself struggled with, thinking the accusation is typically not just why would you take away people's coping mechanism, but also you're taking people to hell with you. As a kafir, you're intentionally taking people to hell, and that's obviously not the case. But I do
Yeah.
wonder, the secular, non-religious version of that is, am I doing more harm than good? Am I taking people out of their blissful ignorance of the possible reality of the world? Or I don't know if you want to call it, I don't want to be cruel and call it their delusion about reality, because we don't know, but we think we have a better idea of what reality is based on what we observe. So is it cruel for me to shatter their illusion of safety, basically? And the way I think of it is, I'm not proselytizing or inviting people, and certainly not any more than people do da'wah or people enforce their beliefs. What I'm doing is just telling people, hey, some people like myself exist. We don't believe this is true, and this is how we cope with it, and so on and so forth. If that happens to introduce some people to doubt or the idea that their religion may not be true, that's just part of life. Like, I'm not doing it with malice. I'm not trying to harm them with what I'm saying. And I'm sure you can attest to this. Like, no part of this is meant to distress the believer, but it just will happen. You can't shield the believer from the reality of the world that they live in. But I certainly don't go out of my way to shatter people's illusion of safety. Like in my personal life, for example, I used to discuss with my Muslim friends things about religion, and it wasn't necessarily all the ugly stuff about Islam. That was before that. It was just philosophical questions about God and existence. I used to do that before I left Islam more than I do now. And even then, I have a friend who jokingly would tell me, hey, let's not talk about this topic again, because last time it made me question reality for way too long.
Huh.
I was fine with that. I don't bring up these topics to agitate anyone or to bring them out of their faith. But in terms of, is it going to happen when they come across a platform like this? It might. And I think I'm doing my best to not make it a distressing experience for them.
Yeah, I understand. Usually, in my there's a quote that I read that I really loved, which is something about religion. It's true for the foolish, although I don't like the word foolish. False by the wise, useful by those who are in power. You would want to control people. Again, how I base my morality is if something is it provides more good than harm, that's good.
And we could
Only
be
if
wrong. I mean, I follow the same moral compass, but I acknowledge, and I think you do too, that we could be wrong in our assessment of whether it does better, more harm than good or benefit than harm. But
yeah, only if
we
it
try.
proves yeah, only if it proves to be very harmful, as in people actively go out and hurt people who aren't Muslim, then it would be justified to combat it intellectually. But where I live, the community that I live in, people do good because of this religion. Even my neighbors, when I was sick, they would usually help me. And when I get better, and when I got better, I'd thank them. And they're like, oh, no problem. Rasul حثنا على هيك. The Prophet told us to be good to your neighbor. Even though I was raised and I saw the ugly side, I also saw the beautiful side. That's why I'm usually hesitant, even though with my friends, the same thing that you did, I do debate. And I can get into that, like the funny responses that I would see. But at this point, I'm over my r/atheism phase. I'm more interested in why people believe. Does it make them a better person? And if the answer, let's say it's pleasant, then you do you. But if someone is genuinely interested in what I think, then yeah, I'll tell them. And just so you know, the penny dropped when you showed me the inheritance argument, the mathematical error.
Really?
No, I'm picturing
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is this is bulletproof. I think this is, and I don't ever bring it up because if I do, that's it. I think single-handedly the best argument you can show. Well, there's two more, which is predestination, free will, and eternal hell. But anyways, we can never agree with people on this. Inheritance calculation error is a very strong one.
I already forgot which verse that was in, but basically there were scenarios where the way
4, verse 11 and 12.
4 verse what?
Chapter 4, verses 11 and 12.
11 and 12. Yeah, there's a mathematical error there. And it's funny because it doesn't even have to be that way. I remember there was a way around it that if the author had worded it differently in terms of portions, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, instead of fractions, if they worded it in terms of portions or something, it could have worked out. But there's a mistake there. But of course, the scholars are aware of this and they make an exception for it. But that exception doesn't fix the error that's in the Quran. But it's funny because you say for you that's when the penny dropped, but for other people they're like, I'm not gonna do the math, and I don't even know if you're lying to me, so I'm not gonna think about it.
Yeah, I remember I showed this to someone who was having doubts, and when I showed her, I think her reality shattered. She was like, "Oh shit, sorry for swearing," but this is how her reaction was. And then she started covering her mouth, the uncomfortable body language. And see, the thing is, because she always struggled, so I showed her why I don't believe. As I said, as I previously mentioned, she was one of those people who are very afraid of death and of evil. So she stayed. Yeah, and I actually had the conversation with my dad when I told him about my reality and what I believe now. It's very weird because his version of Islam is very different than most people. Like I kept giving him sources of hadith, and he just said, "Oh, well, those are unreliable." And at this point, I think he's a hadith rejecter or something, which I understand. There are problems in hadith, but come on, it's sahih. And every time I give him a source, like a historical source, he tries to deny it and say, "Oh, well, those who win get to write history." And it's like every time I give him a source historically, it's something is up, something is unreliable. It's very frustrating.
Well, what's the resolution for you?
What do you mean by that?
So it's very frustrating when you try to do that. So what is the conclusion of all that? Do you still try to have these conversations with him? Does he try to have those conversations with you?
Yeah, again, I have a great relationship with my family. They don't really mind. They encourage me to think. They don't have a problem. And since they have such strong faith, they believe that eventually I'll come back, which is, that's cute. It's fine. It's nice to be open with them and show them my reasons. My dad also tends to do the reinterpretation, which I think that actually it's a flaw. It's an inherent flaw. I said this before, like, why would God choose literature, communicate with humanity? I still think that's the point, and I keep bringing that point, my friends, even in uni. Yeah, if you want, I can talk to you. I can talk about debates I've had in uni, if that interests you. I'll show
Sure.
you how
Let's talk about one of those.
Yeah. So I had a friend that registered in a course. It's called Hadara Islamiyya. It means Islamic civilization. And the professor, she kept making controversial statements. So there would be debates. And every time he would vent to me how frustrating it is. Obviously, he's not actually frustrated. His faith is really strong, but we joke about it. It's fine. I can joke about it as well. Like, I make fun of atheists as well. It's fine. Like, I don't take it too serious. So something led to another. And then he said, if I saw something wrong in the Quran is correct, I am wrong. Something must have been wrong in my mind.
I've heard that
And so
before.
yeah, which is سمعنا وأطعنا, basically. And so I told him, what if a Christian said the exact same thing? How do you expect him to convert to our true religion? And he said, well, yeah, obviously Christianity has a lot of flaws. It's contradictory. The Trinity doesn't make sense. And I agree with him. I 100% agree with you. But you see how you use your brain? So it should be the same thing. That's what I said.
It's funny that he skipped over your question and said, well, obviously they have a lot of flaws, but he didn't immediately tackle the point. Like it doesn't sound like he started with, I mean, but I mean, you're saying if someone had asked me that question, I wouldn't start by saying, well, they actually have real flaws, because that's not really addressing the scenario here. It's, suspend your belief and disbelief for a second. How is your situation different from a Christian? And they start by telling you, well, they have actual mistakes, I don't. I feel like he skipped over, but what was his answer then?
That was his answer.
That Christianity has mistakes?
Yeah, and then I told him, but how do you reach that conclusion? Isn't it by using your head? He said, yes. So we should. And he's like, yeah, obviously you can think about it. Matter of fact, God encourages us to think. It's always in the Quran. And then I told him, well, what do you think is the best evidence for the validity of the Quran? He said the perfect preservation.
But wait, he didn't address that question though, right?
Yeah, I mean, he said perfect preservation, the fact that it's
no, the question before that. Like you were telling him, what if a Christian said the same thing that you just said? If there's a mistake in the Bible, then the Bible is correct and I am wrong. He didn't really address that point, and the point that you're trying to make is,
I understand. But I did mention that. But anyways, then you know how conversations work, right? Okay, that sounds very. I'm very sorry.
No, it's fine. No, I'm saying
what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say is that usually you aren't always able to catch that. And a lot of times you don't even care. I just want to understand how people think, and that's it. I don't really care. Unless someone openly challenges me, then sure, no mercy. This is
Yeah,
what I feel
I
about
think
myself.
I'm biased here because I've been through so many of those conversations that um, now I make it a point, not in a confrontational way, but I make it a point to circle back to the same point before we move on to something else, because it might tell me even more information about how they think about it. But anyway, that's just me. I've been trying to be more meticulous about the point that I'm discussing, and I hope I do the
Exactly.
same for the other person. So yeah, he said that
Yeah.
Christianity has mistakes, and then what was the next thing you talked about?
I was like, okay, well, how are you sure that you are correct? And then he used the fact that it was perfectly preserved. And when I was trying to disprove the religion, I kept seeing this perfect preservation argument as bulletproof. Even, okay, obviously, it doesn't automatically mean that the religion is correct, but it does add to the validity. But now, using hadiths, it's obvious that by the standard definition of perfect preservation, the Quran is not preserved. There are missing verses, there are abrogations, and other stuff. Anyways, it's a very long conversation. He said that this is what makes him believe, and I understand. It's very it's fascinating to see how many children they memorize the Quran and they are حافظين نحن نزلنا الذكر وإنا له لحافظون. Like, I understand that. But once you see one chain, it's a very strong chain. Once you see the weakest link, that's it. Everything else falls apart. Do you agree?
I mean, I think it depends on the person and how their faith works and what it was built on. So for some people, it truly takes one thing to break the chain, and for others, it takes more than that. So it seems like for you, it was one thing, at least, that started that avalanche. But yeah, not everyone works that way.
No, it's usually never one thing. Usually the accumulation of many problems. But once you see something that is irrefutable, like I said, the inheritance error, when it accumulates to everything else, the penny drops. Again, I've seen Siraj Hayani's videos, and I've seen a lot of problems, and I was like, damn, every day I learn something new, and it's very fascinating. I grew up believing that this religion is bulletproof. I've always watched videos of debates with Muslims and Christians, and Muslims, they always win, right? I'd say that they always win. So in my head, it's like, damn, we are correct. We are the haqq. In my head, I was so completely convinced, and it's crazy how when I look back at it, I was so convinced that this is real, and the scientific miracles and the perfect preservation and what it does to you mentally. Because by the way, I still like the Quran. I understand many Muslims they don't like it, but I still find many beautiful things in it.
SubhanAllah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I was absolutely convinced it was real, but now I don't. I just think that's fascinating.
You know, I haven't watched a video by any of the other ex-Muslim YouTubers in a long time, especially the Arab-speaking ones. And part of it is because I don't want to accidentally copy them. I want to make sure that I'm talking about other topics and not distracted by that kind of thing. And partly because I've kind of lost the curiosity to find those deep dives, on things that show that Islam is not true and all that kind of stuff. The way that I've been coming across it is more like I want to talk about a specific issue or specific story, and then all the tangents that I go on from there are fascinating. I'm sure you're aware, if you try to read 3 verses, you go on several tangents about several hadiths behind the verses, and you start thinking about all the technical reasons how this is, almost hilarious sometimes. Like I was thinking about Ya'juj and Ma'juj today, and there's just so much to unpack with this one thing that...
I asked about that actually.
Yeah?
I remember I asked someone about Ya'juj and Ma'juj. I said, do you believe that billions of people are trapped behind the wall? And the guy, he's a very close friend of mine, by the way. But I can see that he got mad. That doesn't the Quran say so? Khalas, shut up. So, okay, he didn't say it in that way, but the tone was a bit aggressive. So I was like, you know what? You're right. And I was like, it's fine, I'm joking. Again, I don't I don't take myself too seriously. I don't really care about proving myself right anymore. I know, okay, this is obviously true. Move on with your life.
Yeah.
But
It's not even necessarily to bring up these points to get the people to notice the absurdity of it. Sometimes it's just entertaining to see the story from a different point of view now.
Yeah, true. And even this is a bit of a tangent, but when I saw your video, how you show the verse, Allah said that people should not stay too long in the Prophet's house because that bothers him, but he's shy to tell them, but God's not shy of the truth, right?
Mhm.
When I found that out, it was so hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. I can't believe something like this is supposed to be divine. Yeah,
I mean, it's easy to also extrapolate wisdom from that and say that, well, that was a lesson for everybody to not be rude when you go to someone's house or something like that. I mean, that's the religious perspective. There's a way to explain away all of these things. But when you put it with a lot of other narratives from, hadith and the seerah, you can kind of tell that the Prophet was a little bit shy and not always very assertive about what he wanted until he brings in the Allah character, or at least that's how I saw some of these examples. I don't know his true intention, but it's always interesting to revisit these stories.
Important.
What's that?
What?
Sorry, there might have been a lag there. I'm saying, it's always interesting to revisit these stories and see how else could they fit. Yeah, context is important, of course.
Yeah, one of the verses that cannot be defended no matter what the context is لا حرج على الأعمى ولا على المريض أن يأكلوا في بيوتكم. You know that verse?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what the hell is that?
I can't remember the number of the verse, but it was ليس على الأعمى حرج ولا على المريض حرج ولا. So it's talking about their
very redundant. ركيك. It's
and that's the part that gets me. There's this linguistic miracle, linguistic beauty, al-i'jaz al-lughawi, all that kind of stuff about how the Quran is so amazing. It could not have been written better if people tried. There's no way you can improve it.
Yeah.
And then I look at a verse like that, and if someone can cite it, that would be great. But it's a verse just talking about there is no burden on the blind, on the sick, and a bunch of random categories, whether you eat in your house or your friend's house or a bunch of things like that.
Whether you have the keys to that house.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It adds no value to anyone's life, and it just doesn't sound eloquent. So if we're talking about beauty and all that stuff,
actually challenge people on the whole linguistic miracles, and I've actually got people to agree with me. See, the thing is, if I actually try to debate, what I've noticed is that I don't want to toot my own horn, but I've seen that I'm sharp. I don't allow for strong men. I don't allow for red herrings. If people get distracted, I'll bring them back. I'm good at finding, let's say, holes. And when I do, and then I present my point, people actually agreed with me that the whole linguistic miracle thing is subjective. I didn't say that it was bad. I said that it was subjective. There's no way to objectively verify that. There's no point of reference, so on and so forth. Arguments that you've heard. So, yeah, it's interesting.
It's impossible to get. I think it's near impossible to have a believer acknowledge that not only is it subjective, but also it could be improved, or it's not perfect, or it's not good.
Actually, I think, though.
I mean, no, it is subjective. They can agree with you on that, but were they able to agree with you on, and it could be improved, or I don't like it, or I mean, not I don't like it. I see a flaw in the language.
That it couldn't be proved.
That it couldn't be proved,
That it couldn't be proved, and that it is subjective, and there's no way for them to verify that. Again, I'm not going to actually show them the verses that are weak.
No, I'm saying could be improved, not just couldn't be proved. I'm saying the language could be improved. It has to.
I don't bring that up. I don't bring that up because I don't know. I just don't. But I got people to agree with me, and that's why I always tell them that do not as proof. I also bring up the whole shifting the burden of proof. Everything that I said in the third call-in show.
Mm-hmm. Everything that you said, as in that that
Like
you
the
had
points I
listed?
mentioned.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Shifting the burden of proof cannot be verified. Yeah. And then I saw a video from Adam al-Masri how Khattab actually was able to fulfill that challenge, and I thought that was interesting.
Was able
But
to
the last
win that challenge of bringing a verse like the Quran?
yeah,
Or,
how
yeah.
he'd say something and it would be copy pasted down. And then I saw apologetics, Ramzi. I actually go to your comments and I always suggest that you debate Ramzi. But I saw a video of Ramzi responding to not Adam, but someone else called God Logic Apologetics. He mentioned the same point. The thing is, because he's so confident, it seems that what they're saying that he was able to refute it, but he really didn't. But anyways, I don't want to, mention names. The last thing that I want to talk about is the prophecies. I think if you and I were to be wrong, maybe it's the prophecies. I think that they are a bit, it's a bit strong. It is a strong argument. I've seen Siraj Khan's video on it, how it was, how the hadiths were compiled after some of these prophecies were actualized. But that does have a bit of conjecturing. So, yeah.
I mean,
Matter of fact, I'll say something very intense here.
you wanna you what? Sorry, what was the last thing you said?
I want to say something, and it's a bit intense.
Wait, but before you
I
do
don't
that,
mind. Yeah.
before you do that, about the prophecies, okay, I think that it's, even if they do come true, it's such how do I say this diplomatically? It's such an asshole move to prove your religion with a prophecy by saying open-ended, well, to prove my religion, sometime, maybe in a few thousand years, this, this river is going to go dry or something like that. Like, what use is that to anyone? What's that?
Some are general, I agree.
Yeah, it's not just that it's very general. What use is it unless I mean, do people not understand how a prophecy works to be impressive? And even when it is, it doesn't really say anything about the truthfulness of a different claim.
Knowledge. That's fine. Acknowledge knowledge.
Yeah,
it's to show your knowledge.
It's to show that you have knowledge that the person doesn't have, knowledge about the future. But when you phrase it in a generic way, in a metaphorical way, in some kind of way, and you're not putting a time frame on it, you're not putting specifics, what you're doing is at best showing off to the future generation that might witness it at some point, but it's not doing anything to prove itself for thousands of years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually agree with you, because I always thought that if I was God, my predictions would be so spot on. Dude, I would make this religion so bulletproof. Channels like yours couldn't exist.
I wish that was the case. Like, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, with what's going on, I really do wish that I am wrong. Yeah, this is gonna be intense, but I don't mind going to hell if it means that people who did evil are going to be punished, and those who were oppressed will go to Jannah.
Do you feel like the punishment is a necessary part of retribution and justice?
According to this religion, yes.
Sadly.
No, I know.
How do you?
I don't actually believe.
What do you think of that?
What?
What do you think? If you could customize the afterlife, is the punishment an important part of it for you?
Well, it depends on the people, obviously. Again, I'm trying not to make political statements. I can, but I didn't come here for that. You're gonna do that tomorrow with your live stream. But these evil people who are blowing up hospitals and children, they deserve to be punished. So yes, punishment is necessary, but only for those people, only for the worst of the worst. As for the rest, I could figure something out. I'll be omniscient, so I don't know what to do.
So you'll defer to your better godly judgment when you have that power.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm conflicted about whether punishment is a necessary part of it. I mean, I don't know.
Cases.
What's that?
In extreme cases, yes.
the thing is, and okay, maybe I'll do this very quickly before we end the call, but this could be its own topic. I'm not sure if I believe that people have as much agency as we think we do. So I'm not excusing bad people who do bad things, but as a God who's aware of all the factors and all the things that led to that, and maybe even who orchestrated all of this happening, depending on what religion we're talking about, I would find it difficult to then be upset or angry or vengeful against basically the result of a biological reaction that I predicted or put into place.
I mean, the whole thing about knowing that's going to happen, but doing it anyway, we can ignore that because, as I said, my approach would be different in the first place. But I get what you mean. There are factors that influence your free will. I understand and I agree. But you still have a choice. You still make a choice. Where throwing rockets in a densely populated area, you are making that choice despite the factors. You're still making that choice. So you should be held accountable.
Well, I saw a comment, by the way, from might have been Hassan Alwan saying you should start your own YouTube channel, and I'm here to tell you don't. It's a big headache. But no, I wanted to pass on the compliment.
The best compliment I could have gotten. It's from Hassan Alwan.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that made my day, man. Hassan Alwan, I love you.
It's such a small circle of people that you are now, you've contacted Hassan Alwan in a way, and that's amazing to me. When I first started all this, I didn't realize how small of a circle this actually is. But yeah, here you go. I just wanted to pass on the compliment in case you didn't see it.
Yeah, thank you for telling me. Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
Okay, I think I've gotten everything out of my chest. So thank you very much.
Yeah, this went very smoothly, and I feel like I didn't have your bullet points in advance, but I somehow also kind of tied in everything I was saying to your bullet points, so it worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.
You too.
All right. Thanks again to the caller, and we have one last caller. We had a bunch more, but a few of them left the queue, but that's fine. We still have plenty of time for this last call. So I hope you're ready. How do you pronounce that? Vandana, because I'm adding you to the live stream now. Hey, Vandana, can you hear me? You're on the stream now. And you're muted, by the way. Let's give it a couple of seconds. You're still muted. In the meantime, my cat's been here.
Hello.
Hey, that worked. It was a bit loud. How's it going?
It's okay. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So tell me a little bit about yourself and why you're joining today.
I called a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. We had a conversation about, I think I brought up the topic that maybe this drive towards metaphysics is genetic in human beings. We had that conversation, evolutionary. But I just wanted to say before I go on to the topic I want to discuss, I Googled Yuj and Majuj. I didn't know what that was about. And I just want to read this quickly to you from Britannica.com.
Okay.
Gog and Magog, or sometimes Gog, Magog, and Quirinius, are descended from mythical pagan giants, and their origins lie in medieval legends of the early British kings. The story goes that Diocletian, the Roman emperor, had 33 wicked daughters, ... So is this like a legend that got incorporated into Islam and Christianity and Judaism like many, many years after?
I gotta be honest with you. I've never dug into the Gog and Magog legend outside of Islam, so that very well could be. It's happened a lot, but the version of it that's in Islam is, in short, basically, there's this man called Dhul Qarnayn, man with the two horns, and I believe historians approximate that he might have been Alexander the Great or some other mythological or historical figure. And he went to like the most eastern part of the world, like the edges of the world, basically. I mean, it's not explicitly said that it's a flat Earth, but it's the eastern edges and the western edges. And he saw the sun set in a muddy spring, and then he went somewhere else and he saw a bunch of people, and those people told him, please help us. There's those people called the people of Gog and Magog, Yajuj and Majuj, and they're terrible people. They're spreading corruption and all sorts of stuff. And if you look into the backstory, the Islamic sources say those people were cannibals. And this man, this great man, helped them build a wall so great that those people could not escape from. And every day they try to escape, and they break part of a wall, but then they go to sleep before they say, God willing, tomorrow we'll finish it. So the wall repairs itself or something like that. So those people still exist. Not only do they exist somewhere on the earth and they've never been spotted, but they will come back before the day of judgment. And like, it's one of the signs that the day of judgment is around the corner. And what else? And yeah, they're so numerous that on the day of judgment, there's going to be one human going to hell for every approximately 1,000 people from Gog and Magog, allegedly. So yeah, this is not some kind of obscure Islamic story that's not verified. I mean, most of it is from the Quran. So yeah, I'm not sure if you heard that one before.
Well, then it also says that this wall is in Dagestan.
I don't know. That's that couldn't be confirmed. I mean, there's speculations that all this happened somewhere in the east. Like I've read that those people are the people that the Turks stemmed from, but no one has ever found anything like that, because allegedly they still exist in this closed system and they will someday come out, but they're still undetected.
And then isn't there, I could be wrong, but I thought that they were trapped in Saudi Arabia. And that there's some sort of ritual when people go on Hajj there. I don't know.
No. You're thinking of the devil that gets, that people pelt the devil with rocks during Hajj. Is that maybe what you're thinking about?
Maybe. Is the devil supposed to be trapped there?
I'm not sure anymore if it was supposed to be symbolic or actual, but there's a couple of walls there where supposedly the devil is chained to, and you can throw rocks at it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, so that's interesting. The topic I wanted to talk about today, if there's any people from the UK listening in, I've done a lot of...
Wait, 1 sec. Before we get to that, in our last conversation, did we talk about... do you have a religious background, or did we talk about that topic at all?
No, I don't have a religious background.
Okay. I'm curious about your interest in the topic then, not coming from a religious background. What piqued your interest about this?
Because I was just listening to the last caller. That's what he was talking about, Gog and Magog.
Oh, no, I mean about religion in general.
Oh, I mean, I think we discussed this before. I've always had an inclination towards things like philosophy, ideas, religions. I have friends from many different belief backgrounds, although I don't have a specific religion myself. So I probably should, since I seem to be interested in religion as a whole. I don't know. But no, I don't have a particular religion myself, but I have an interest, for some reason, in ideas about religion.
Okay. No, that's fair. And you don't have to have a religion just because you're interested in religion. But if you were to have, or let me ask it this way, how come you're not following a religion?
Well, my approach is this. I just don't find that there's any proof for a lot of the truth claims. I find the practices of different religions to be beneficial and inspiring. I find prayer and meditation, chanting, things like that. I can see the benefit and inspiration in those things. Organized religion has a lot of issues. Um, so basically, that's why. I mean, it's just a lot of the truth claims are silly, and the organized, institutionalized religions tend to do a lot of harm to people.
Okay.
But I have nothing, you know, nothing against practices like prayer and meditation and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm always curious about why people believe or why they don't. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so what was
What
the
I
topic
wanted,
that you, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so people in the UK could maybe share some insight on this. Here in the USA, we don't seem to have any major problems with Muslims. Like, as far as I know, they don't disproportionately represent convicts and things like that. Apparently in the UK, they do. Apparently in the UK, Muslim men are disproportionately represented in the prison system. There was this whole grooming gang thing going on, which is still going on, and Muslim men, specifically of Pakistani background, were disproportionately represented in that. And one, I'm wondering why we don't seem to have this issue here in the US. Number two, as far as I've seen, none of the family members or friends or mosque acquaintances of these convicts that were convicted for grooming gang criminal activities, none of their associated people came forward and said, we're disowning our son now. He doesn't represent us. He doesn't represent Islam. We're very sorry for the victims and their families. So I was just wondering if anyone maybe from the UK could write in a comment, maybe if they have any insight into this.
Well, I have a
And that,
comment about that last part. So when we think about examples of people from other religions doing such acts, and I haven't vetted the information that you're telling me, but I will assume that you're telling me the truth that you read or something that you read in a news source. But going off of that, if say there were a bunch of people of another religion who were involved in such gangs, is it expected that their community would come out and disown them, or would they just quietly not want to associate with the person who assaulted someone?
I think I've seen both. I've seen both. There's definitely I mean, you've got all kinds of people, like, for example, these crazy cult busts. Like, I don't know. I don't know if you know a lot about Mormonism in Utah, but apparently mainstream Mormonism in Utah has a lot of offshoots that are really wacky, with lots of polygamy and incest marriages, and a lot of those people, I've seen some videos, they're coming out and saying they're just leaving it all together. They're being outspoken and everything. And I guess I haven't really seen that with what's going on in the UK, or maybe there is. Maybe someone from the UK can come out and say if there's been any backlash of people related to these men or knowing these men who've come out and said we're disassociating with these men altogether.
Well,
I don't know.
There's a lot that I want to say about several of these points. So firstly, I mean, I'm thinking personally, if I know someone who has committed such a terrible act, I don't think that I would want to go out publicly and say, I used to be associated with them, I'm not anymore. I'll just quietly not associate with them. So I can understand why no one's, coming out publicly to own up to it or anything like that, because it's not them. And it's also, it's not a religious issue in the same way that, for example, assault in or abuse in churches is an issue. Like, that one is closely tied to religion because it's happening in a place of worship, And that does happen in mosques as well, but that's a different point. What you're describing, if it is true, if it is actually a problem exclusive to a population of people of a certain religion, I think that if it is true, it's probably more rooted in other factors, like crime being higher in certain populations because of, be it living conditions, be it how they first started their lives in that country and things of that nature. I don't think it's tied to religion per se, because Islam doesn't really allow this kind of thing. It certainly leaves room for a lot of infantilizing of women and mistreatment in many ways, but it doesn't allow that. So I wouldn't really expect anyone from any religious group or any family member to come out and say, this is not us, guys, we don't like these people. So it makes sense that no one would own up to it in that way. And as for, people being in the UK prison system, again, if that is true, that there's a higher representation of Muslims in the UK prison system, again, that might have factors that might be related to factors that have to do with socioeconomic reasons. But also, I've heard that in many prisons in the US and in the UK, a lot of people convert to Islam in the prison. And I know that in the US, there have been a lot of people who convert to Christianity too. And that could just be, I don't know, a way for brotherhood or a way to better yourself or something like that. So I'd be curious about the statistics behind this and how, not just the numbers, but how the numbers became that way. Because I don't think it's as simple as just because they follow a certain religion.
No, like I said, we don't seem to have that issue in the US. So I was wondering about the demographics in the UK, why it seems to be an issue there.
Yeah, I think it's a very different climate, and there's a lot more. There's a different context in terms of the populations that have immigrated into the UK versus the US, and the methods that they've done that with, and the history of the UK's relation to the countries that many people have come from versus the US. So it's a different climate, and a different population density as well. And part of it, again, this is all kind of just speculation based on what you're telling me, but I've heard a lot that it's also because of how insular some of these communities are in the UK. Like, they tend to keep to themselves and grow within themselves, partly because they were not welcome to integrate with society at least in the beginning, and partly it's just a community thing. So there's a lot more to it than I would know how to give input on. But yeah, I'm seeing a bunch of comments kind of commenting on that, so I might be worth a read.
Yeah, I saw one commenter mention specifically from North Pakistan, and I even read that men from the region of Mirpur, which I think is in North Pakistan, were even more disproportionately represented. So I don't know what it has to do with that particular town. I don't know the history, but anyway, okay, so let me ask you this. In your opinion, because people will say, I don't know, people who are there's of course some xenophobia that's mixed in with some people's opinions about Muslims and Islam. And they'll say things like, you know, Islam is just not compatible with Western civilization. It's just not compatible with democracy. Below a certain percentage, they're forced to blend in, but above a certain percentage, then they really try to Islamicize whatever country that they immigrate to, and it's just not compatible. And I'm here in the U.S. where religion is really seen as like a personal journey, if you will. So, I mean, I don't see major problems with religion here, except for the fact that some fanatical Christians seem to have a lot of influence in the government. But what would you say? Do you think Muslims in general are compatible with, quote, Western civilization? And do you think that Muslim populations have to be kept beneath a certain percentage of the population in order for a country in the West to continue on with like its values of democracy and aiming for equal rights for everybody and yada, yada, yada?
I don't think it's possible to answer that in such a generic way, because if I were to think about it, I don't know what the population percentage of Christians in the US is, but if they're practicing as strictly as some Muslims practice their religion, then I would say Christianity is incompatible with a secular society. Like, we're already seeing that in the US, where they're trying to repeal laws that they think don't work with God. So I think it's the bigger problem is religion compatible with secularism? That depends on how you practice that religion and what that religion is. Is Islam compatible with secularism? It depends on how the people practice it. In my opinion, if people practice it to the book, and if people are fundamentalist about it, then no, Islam is not compatible with secularism. But that applies to a lot of religions as well. And in terms of keeping the population at a certain percentage and so on, this one's tricky, because I know that a lot of these are just scary talking points for people who don't like outsiders in general, but there is a kernel of truth of when a population is empowered in their practice of their religion, their transgression against their own members who don't comply will be more bold. Like, you see crimes against Muslim women from, their family members and so on. They're more common in places where there's a higher population density of Muslims, because of how communities work, because of how it feels like they can cover up some of these things, or that they're normal because other people around them do the same thing. So there is a point to that yes, when there is a higher population density of practicing Muslims of a certain background, it really depends. Because not everyone practices religion the same. So I can't generally say that there's a certain number that you have to keep the statistic under in each country. That's not true. It's just be vigilant of the conditions that will empower people to harm each other. Because most of the danger that comes from these scenarios that people are scared of is to believers and ex-believers of that community, not as a danger to other Americans or other British people around them. That's my opinion, is the biggest danger is to us. So I am concerned about it from that angle.
Okay, I saw that somebody named Stefan and maybe one or two other people said that I sound classist in my questions. I don't know what that means in this context. And I'm curious what class they think I belong to. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they want to write and I can read what's classist. Maybe it was that I said in the US religion seems to be a personal thing mostly. And okay, maybe I'm in an area that is privileged to have people just go to their places of worship and not try to force that on other people. But I don't know what they mean by I sound classist. I have no idea. But Stefan and whoever, Stefan Miles Cook, you're making broad generalizations. Yeah, I mean, we have to, in order to have conversations, there have to be some sort of like broad generalization.
And I gotta say, to be honest, like, that kind of question usually puts us on edge as, believers or ex-believers, because sometimes it has certain connotations behind it. And I'm not accusing you of anything. Even if you had those connotations, I appreciate you asking that questions to me, or if there was another person here, like if you were to ask it to a Muslim, that would also be great, because it's good to get that perspective rather than just hear the people who keep repeating it. And like I said, it's a very tricky question because I don't want to feed into the scare tactics, because the biggest threat, if it exists, is usually towards us, like believers or ex-believers in that space. So I have to say, honestly, I tend to worry a little bit when there's a high population density of Muslims in a certain area, of very practicing Muslims in a certain area, because I worry about those among them whose freedoms are being restricted and who get a version of community and a version of life that is more akin to that of a Muslim in the Middle East. And that is a life without as much personal freedom. In many cases, it depends on, the country that you live in. It depends on your family. It depends on the class that you come from. That is unfortunately a factor that plays into it too. But the biggest concern is usually to us. It's not a concern about outsiders taking over the country and making non-Muslims behave more Muslimly.
Okay. I did make it clear in the beginning, though, that I said some people who are xenophobic ask these questions, right? They ask, or they say these things about, we have to keep the Muslim population below a certain amount. There's xenophobic people who feel like that. They mix up their xenophobia with their critique of Islam. And I said that in the beginning. I'm asking like what your opinion is on it. And I think the people in the comments probably think that this is the way I feel, and it's actually not, but I've heard it. I've read it. People are saying it all over YouTube, whatnot. So I just wanted to see if you thought that there was any, truth in that.
No, I appreciate you
Classist
asking
thing.
that. Yeah. I appreciate you asking
Yeah,
that
no,
openly.
Yeah, like I said, as far as I know, we haven't had any issue as a whole in the United States with Muslims. Maybe I'm wrong, but like it's not my view to be xenophobic against Muslims from different backgrounds or in general. So, and as far as the voice fry, someone said I have vocal fry. That's just my voice. I know I have a very annoying voice. A friend of mine wants me to do audiobooks, and I'm like, you cannot be serious. Because whenever I hear myself back, I'm like, oh my God, I sound so ridiculous. But yeah, sorry, that's just my voice. We all have a diversity of vocal tones. Anyway.
Yeah. No, try not to pay too much attention to the comments, or I've learned that very early on. It's difficult to keep up with all the comments, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, I have it on the big kind of like television screen, so I'm seeing the comments, but yeah. So let's see. I am generalizing. In order to have conversations, there has to be some sort of generalizing. But yeah, I don't know. And as far as the classist thing, that's I don't know about that.
Yeah.
They probably think I'm at least middle class. That's what they're thinking. They're thinking I'm at least middle class. So I won't comment on my economic situation. But anyway, so okay. That's all for now.
Well, I appreciate you joining again.
Yeah, I appreciate that you take calls, and it's in cover my right eye. Okay.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad that you called in.
This guy says women are too much. Women are too much. We should have an all-man cave show.
Wait, who's saying that? Women are too much.
Now it disappeared. It's like above FP. If you scroll, I don't know which way on your.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see that the moderators are on it. Yeah, no, I certainly would not make this a man cave show. I've had a lot of interesting callers, and I have to admit, it's usually a tad bit more interesting when I get female ex-Muslim callers. because, I mean, to me, because I'm biased, because I lived as a male, obviously, so I didn't get that perspective. So they always tell me about things that I hadn't heard of or I hadn't experienced. So I appreciate that. Certainly not a man cave show. But anyway, yeah, just don't pay too much attention to the comments. And yeah, thank you again for joining today's call.
Okay, but I just, before I go, I just want to say one thing. It's kind of like, it's very bizarre. This feedback I got from some of these comments, like as if I'm being biased against Muslims, when I actually kind of see it as the opposite here. I'm trying to understand maybe what the issues are in the UK, because like I said before, we don't seem to have any issues at all with Muslims in general here.
No, I think
So
like some people were explaining, it comes from a sensitivity specifically in the UK, because they've heard a lot of these points like posed as questions, but they're not actually intended as a question, intended to find out, but more like as an insinuation. So they tend to be on guard with that kind of question, and especially if it's coming from someone that they are assuming to be, I'm guessing, white and not, from a similar background to them. So I understand why they're a bit on edge about that, but I hope you don't take it personally when they're pointing that out. I mean, some of them were just pointing out, just so you know, this might be a dog whistle or something, but you've clarified your thoughts as much as you can, and I appreciate you doing that.
right, but then from my point of view, it could be, let's say anybody who critiques Islam is going to be considered a dog whistler.
I mean, that's the issue with them, and that's why I try to be very careful in my wording. But Islam tends to be put on this pedestal where there is truth to the fact that people are targeted because they're Muslim, and that is used to shield Islam and any criticism of Muslims, because it's seen as a stepping stone to an escalation to something that would lead to harming a Muslim. That's not what we're intending to do here at all. But I understand why people are sensitive about it. Islam is very tricky to talk about.
Okay, hold on a minute. Anyway, I'm reading the comments and responding as if this is my show. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that you took my call, and I appreciate listening to your shows sometimes. And it's been fun. So have a good evening.
Thanks. And same to you. And hope you have a great rest of your evening or day.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks again to the caller for joining. And yeah, we had a full queue. Some people dropped off, but it was a great show. Thank you everyone for being here. And I'd like to remind you, if you didn't know, I have a live stream tomorrow, and I'll try to make it a brief one. I'm not taking any calls, just to talk about the Palestine-Israel situation. And just to prime you for that, it's not going to be a live stream where I'm giving you some cold hard facts and truth that you didn't know about, or my take on the whole thing. It's not going to be that at all. It's actually the opposite. I'm going to tell you why I haven't been discussing this topic, and why I will continue to not discuss it as far as I can. And I'll explain how I feel about it and how it feels to be in my position, because I'm sure there are a lot of ex-Muslims who are in my position who feel like they're put in the middle of it and they have to pick a side and be vocal about it. And don't get me wrong, tomorrow I'm not going to just be saying both sides are bad, everybody sucks, I'm enlightened. Just if you would like to know what I think about that, or how I feel about that would be more accurate, please do join tomorrow's live stream. It'll be a similar time to today's, maybe a couple hours delayed. So yeah, if you join tomorrow, I'm hoping to see you there. And if you joined today, I appreciate you being here. And as always, I wanted to thank my YouTube members and patrons and donors for supporting me. This would not be possible without you. And without your continued support, this channel would not be here. So thank you, everybody, for helping. And as always, think critically and think for yourself.